Hi, my name is Alina, and today I'm going to teach you how to make this Cyberpunk pants on Marvelous Designer. So let's begin. First of all, for the basic of this pattern of this pants, I'm going to use this pattern that I found on the internet. I think it's called Alibaba pants, I think, or British pants. So first of all, I'm going to use this one. So on the 2D pattern window, I right click and then add background image, and here I choose my image. As you see, its opacity is 50%, so I bring it to 100, and also it's too much small, so I make it bigger, something like this. Now I try to with polygon tool, I try to put points on every corner. As you see, here is 90 degree. I try to make it 90. But it comes here if I make it 90. Then I fix it. So it's finished. Now with my curve tool, I press C on the keyboard. I bring out this whatever is it, edit curvature, and I try to make curve these lines. And so here now I can make it like 90%. I try to make it 90%. Okay. And now here is good. I try to play with this arrow. Okay. And here needs to be a little curve. Here, this part, I really don't like it to be a curved or this diagonal, so I bring up this point. So this is my the base pattern. Now I reset. So as you see, this pattern is a little bit shorter. Also, the waist is too much large, so I bring it here. Also, this is too much. I hold shift to bring it here. Okay. The curve is not pulled out at all. So, okay, also I want to make it larger, so I bring it lower. Let's okay. Because after that I'm going to attach another pattern for the wrist. So now I select it and Control D on the keyboard. Okay, we don't like them like this. It's like a single object, so we bring one of them a little bit on the front. Now I select all of them, copy here, Control C and V. Okay, right click horizontally, and we bring them in the back of our model. A little bit upward. So now let's sew them together. Okay, because of this dot, I use free sewing tool. These two parts, yes. This part is going to be attached to this part, and this to this. Oh, no. To this. Also here to here. So now let's simulate. Yep. I press W on the keyboard and click here. Also here. Now I simulate. Bring them up. Not this much up. Okay, I exaggerated. Now here. Okay, I don't know why I'm exaggerating. So since it's too much large, this thing will happen. Okay. Somehow finished. So now I left, right click. Delete all. Oh, okay. Okay, this is very basic. I really like where they are, so I don't touch it. So now for the belt part. For the belt. For the belt, what I do is to ring this rectangle tool. I don't know how. Okay, it's like 15. So I make a rectangle which is height is 15 centimeter. 7. That was what happened? Okay. 7. I think it's okay. Yes. I use Clo3d. I don't put them far away from the bottom part, so okay. Another two control is CV. Okay. Here on the 3D window, I put them horizontally and I bring them back. Okay. Let's see. This to this. This to this. This to this. Oh. Now here to here. Here to here, I think. Yes. Push it down. 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 Right. Here is kind of okay. Okay. Yes. Okay. Here is okay. No. I press Z, then click here, hold Shift, and click here, and right click. I choose internal long curve. I like 3. Internal line between these two lines. Also, here. So here another 3. Okay. Now what I like to do, as we are on Edit Pattern tool, I right click and local pattern. I choose them, and I make them elastic. If my recording tool let me see, yes, and yes. I forgot to unlock all the patterns, and now I clone over here. Clone over. Yes, here. The first thing that I'm going to do is to remove this edit link. Also, the elastic, I'm going to uncheck it. Okay, put an elastic, and I select all of them. And double click on the center, and I make them bigger. Okay. And also here, the particle distance should be like 5. And now simulate. We can see a little bit. So another time, we make them bigger. The more you make them bigger, the more you have wrinkles. And then I'm going to delete sewing and every bar. Just the sewing line that is around them. And now I press N and I do this. To just do it in that direction. So we are about to finish. Now this part is here to here. Is it clear? Here to here, here to here, and these two are the longest. Also, these two longest parts. And now we sew. What happened? You already sewed it? Okay. So now sew it. I should have done this before. Make it strong and strengthen. Now it goes to the sky. Oh my god, what happened? Something is wrong here. Which part is? It's something between this and this. Now, I press B to see what is happening. Nothing is happening. What? Oh my god. No. Oh my god. This is not good. I think I did something bad. And I don't know which part it is. I did something wrong. Did you remember? Hey, Clo. I found it. I pressed it. Now I'm going to do the same thing here for the wrist. So here I measured it. It's like, oh my god, 23. So make a rectangle which is like 11 to 5. Is it 5 now? It's 6. Yes. Also here, so then I Ctrl D. Yes. I do the same exact thing I did above, so make 3 internal lines. Then I also Ctrl C, Ctrl V. And here, have it flip them. And I bring them closer to our model. What we should do also for the front part. So now I right click and lock all of the header, and for the internal line I made them elastic. Oh, I forgot to do something. I should sew them together. So with the segment tool, first I should unlock them. Let's see. Now, this part is going to be sewn to this part. And this part to the last part. Okay, now they are elastic. I like to make them as straight with Ctrl H. Now layer clone over. So now that I brought them here, the very first thing that I would do is remove the link. Let me sort something. And also the elastic part, I check and uncheck to eliminate. Okay. The next thing is to make them bigger. Make them bigger as much as you want until you insert 5 for particle distance. So you can even make them bigger. It depends on the model, on the sizes and the model that you want. But I'm okay here, so I freeze them. Press G on the keyboard, and I'll do this. And double click. I press C. I make a curve as much as I want. It's too much optional. Now you see I have this on the both sides. Now in the exact same place. G. I make another line. Yes. I think it's, yeah, they correspond. So I press C and I make it here shapes are too much optional. I cannot tell you that this is the best form that you could give. So press Z and here I will right click and cut and sew. Now I choose this line, press X, right click. I'm going to yes, make 3 lines, or maybe 4. It's 4, but I want 3 right now. Even 3 works for us. Also here I divide this into 3. Let's see if we'll like it. Okay. So I press G and I make these lines. And then I cut and sew them. Here, I cut and sew them. Now, for those kind of stripes, I choose this internal line and I make a what? How much is it? Is it 2? Really? 1 centimeter. I choose 1 centimeter, an internal line with the distance of 1 centimeter, and then I cut and sew it. Then, if you like, you can remain here. If you don't like, you can layer clone. And if you like, remove link and make it large horizontally. But always for those wrinkles, you should make particle distance to 5. Well, something like this. Then, if you want this line to be more profound, here, press V. Here we can make them profound. Like you can make it like 200. If you want it more intense, you can make it like 280. Here you can customize things. If you put bigger numbers, it will be more profound, and the fewer numbers, it makes it vanish. So it depends on your taste. I don't want to do it like this image. I don't want them to be like too much wrinkles and it's so okay. Also here, what did I do? No, I choose this and into the line 1 centimeter and cut and sew, and then clone over. So here we just need to do this clone over. Clone over. Okay, we do the exact same thing also here. Oh, it's the background. Okay, so I do this. Press C. Action. Yes. So now I cut and sew until your patterns are symmetric, because then for the fly and the side pockets and other parts we need to remove this edited link. So now internal line 1 centimeter and cut and sew. Here, if you want, you can. I don't want to. I want to. I like to clone over. Oh. Clone over. This is still on, so we turn it off. This part, I already want to remove this link, so I will make another internal line. Here is full of internal lines and cut and sew. Oh my god. Oh my god. Okay. Now we've finished this part. I am going to announce that I'm going to remove this linked editing. So now here, now the fly piece. So press X, choose 5 centimeters. Choose 5 centimeters. Here, 15. Yeah. So I press G for internal line tool. I make a 5 centimeter parallel to what we have right there. So also on this line, just something like 4 centimeter or 5. It's not that much of a big deal. Look. Okay. So here I choose this point and eliminate. Before that, I choose this trace tool and hold shift and click on this. Also this one. And I trace it as a pattern. You can even delete this part. Yes. So now I delete this part. Not Control C, just C. Okay. So now again I choose this trace tool. I choose every single part and I trace it as a pattern. Now what I do is to make an internal line. This time it's not 1 centimeter, it's like 70 or 0.7, which is not extend. So internal line is not extend, just this far and yes. Look at it. What are you doing? Yeah, I've got my own problems and suddenly something is wrong with the without fabric. Okay, I extend it. But here, internal line. Okay. Now the thing we should do is to hide our avatar. And do you see this part? You right click on them and you say Clo3d arrangement. So I bring this one inside. And this part is going to be in the front. So this is going to be some to the left. And here to here. If I right click and make it like side, okay, it's good. Okay, and now this part. She is going to be soon. Yes. This part to this part. Oh, here. Here. To here. Here. To here. Okay, it's finished. Okay. Now the last part that remains is the zipper. Make something like 1 to 10, is it? To 12. It's 1 to 12. Now I make a hole, I convert it to hole. And let's bring the zipper. Double click. Oh my god, I did it wrong. Click, double click. Also here, click, double click. As you see, I choose 1 centimeter. Also, the zipper here is 1 centimeter width. You can change the width of the zipper, and then you can have a bigger hole for this. it's optional. You can do all the things here. So I'm going to change this. Now I will draw another rectangle, but internal rectangle. It's Persian. You see it? Exactly like this. Now what I do is to cut and sew. You cut and sew a lot. Here you cut and sew a lot. It's all because of that part. So the very last things. So let's not make this video more than 1 hour. Oh my god. Go. Go. Rectangle. I make another rectangle. Like 50. Let me see how much bigger it is. Oh. Okay. This rectangle is like 20 centimeters, but I don't want to be. Well, I don't want it to be that much big. I right click on it and I clone it as internal line shape, and I attach it here. Do you see it? So what I do is to make. Let me see if I can offset out. Yes, I make outline and I create this internal line. So what I do is to sew these 2 parts, but I did it wrong. Okay, let me see. Oh, okay. What happened? Wait, it holds. Oh my god, I made another. What is it? I made. Thank you. Please, My Highness, please come here, all of you together. So I press this B. I did it this way, and now press M. This part is going to be sewn with the internal line. So I make it. Yes. Now I make this clone over. Yeah, and click here. The layer clone over. Okay. What I do here for the aesthetics. I remove linked, so I can do whatever I like to do. I choose this, the internal line, and it's going to be 50. So now I do this to this, this to this, and this to this. So there's nothing wrong here. Yes, this one's wrong. Now I make another internal line to cut and sew, like 150 is more beautiful. I cut and sew it. Yes, and here another internal line, just for the beauty. And cut and sew it, just for the sake of beauty. And that's it. The last part is here. Copy, V. Let me see. Okay, it should be inside. Okay, copy. Okay, I choose Z. I press X and make it into 2. Yes. I bring it a little bit, yeah, lower. Okay. here divide. And now I copy and paste it here. Control C, Control V always. Yes. Okay. I delete this part. M. I press M, and I will show this part to this part, and this is small part to this small part, and then this to this. Where are you? And superimpose over. The very last thing that we should do is this stripe. Where is it? Is this a stripe? Something like 30. It's good. Okay. Like 3 to 30. Whoa. Let's see. M, I press M, U, I press M, and wherever you like this, and here, to, okay, yes, do this, and it's reversed now. Let me see. Yeah. Oh no, yes, I think it's reversed. Okay, we should reverse it. No. No. So, if you want it looser, you can make it looser. So, you make it clone over, you make another layer, and that's it. Unfreeze, Control K. Control K is on unfreeze. Control K. So for fixing this problem here, let's first try to bring this here. But before that, I'm going to make everything larger. Did you see that it always tend to go over? So I think one of the problems could be it, so I make it larger. One other way that you could do is to shrinkage weft or weft, yeah. Or in this instance, it should be shrink weft because I did it in this direction, horizontally. So let me see. Okay, you still need to bring it down. Come down, please, mister. Okay. Now I bring this here. Okay, it's going toward the center. Okay, so we are good here. We know that other things are not the problem. The problem is this part. So the next thing I'm going to do is to choose this part and make it elastic. But 10 to 80 is too much, so I make it 5 to 85. And that's it. It's finished. Our model is finished, and the last thing is just to make it 3D. Also make this one 3D. The reset 3D arrangement. And you should be Superimpose Over. And as you see, so far, this part wasn't good. So I reverse it, and now finished. Please. Okay, I hope you like this video. Please subscribe me and see you later. Bye.